villains aren't supposed to win, right? It goes against what we're taught at a young age, that morality should be rewarded and wrongdoing should be punished. A villain winning teaches us that sometimes evil does prevail, but there's actually a multitude of ways for a villain to win while still serving as a positive experience for the other characters and even the audience. It exposes its themes, forces real consequences, and leaves the hero changed. So in order to understand how the bad guy succeeding is a good thing, we must understand what it takes to write a villain that wins. When writing a villain who succeeds in the end, there are 4 different avenues you can potentially go down when structuring your bad guy's victory. The first is the victory of outcome, where the villain succeeds in winning the prize the movie builds up as being the be-all end-all. In the movie Cars, that is the Piston Cup, and it's the apple of the eye of both our protagonist Lightning McQueen and our antagonist Chick Hicks. The Piston Cup is a certified status symbol, and the one who wins it will be immortalized as one of the greatest racers to ever live. At the beginning of the film, Lightning and Chick are both of equal mind when it comes to winning the cup, but the film is clever in how it writes both characters' desires. Both racers believe winning to be the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that gives their lives meaning, and if they succeed, it will give them everything they could ever want.
Welcome to the Chick era, baby! Piston Cup? It's mine, dude. It's mine.
And yet, from the get-go, the film clues you into the emptiness of that mindset. Despite believing this, Lightning still feels a hollowness, an emptiness to being at the top as he has no one to share that glory with. That isn't really a problem for Chick though. His desire to be on top seems to come from pure spite, as winning will finally give him the status over others and the respect he believes he rightfully deserves. At least that's how he thinks it'll go anyways. When the climactic final race comes, both protagonist and antagonist are still sharing the same mindset. Winning is everything. But the entire concept of winning is put into an entirely different context the moment Chick decides to play dirty and send legendary racer Strip the King Weathers into a burnout.
I am not coming in behind you again, old man!
It's right then that the value of winning immediately begins to change for Lightning, something that the film had been building towards the entire film. His time in Radiator Springs has taught him what is really worth winning. It isn't the admiration of the masses, but the intimate relationships that can be built when you put selfishness in the rearview mirror. And so with the Piston Cup his for the taking, Lightning decides to give it up in order to perform an act of kindness and maturity by pushing the injured king across the finish line. But that means the door is left wide open to give Chick Hicks the win he so desperately wanted. And this is how you write a villain that wins, but not really. Chick believed that if he won, no matter how he did it, he would become a god amongst cars. All he could ever see was the finish line, not the road it takes to get there. And this becomes immediately apparent when his victory is overlooked by others while Lightning's act of kindness becomes center focus of the race's aftermath. The cheers Chick was anticipating quickly turn to boos, as despite the outcome, Chick is left not with the admiration or glory, but simply a trophy. He's left with his victory and no one to share it with because of the means he took to achieve it. Chick becomes a cautionary tale not because of his timely defeat, but because he actually achieves everything he ever wanted. When writing a villain, sometimes the villain must win because the story isn't about good prevailing via conventional means. Chick's win doesn't hurt the message of the narrative, but it strengthens it. And by not having Chick's win undone, it allows the audience to recontextualize what success ultimately means to them by seeing the downside that comes from ruthless ambition. It's that bit of nuance that turns Chick Hicks from being a simple rival-style villain into a tool that exposes the truth of what winning is really all about. But a villain's victory can change the protagonist while also actually giving the villain what they ultimately want. The way to achieve this can be done through the victory of validation. Maybe their goals of evil and destruction don't come from a simple desire to be the biggest fish on the food chain, but rather from a much more personal place. Perhaps much like a child, their acting out is a byproduct of not receiving the attention they believe they deserve. A villain earning that attention can certainly be considered a victory, and it's the personalized style of success that the Joker experiences in the Lego Batman movie. In the film, Joker revels in being one of Gotham's most notorious villains, capable of spreading chaos across the city, yet he doesn't do this to achieve any real kind of power or prize, at least not intentionally. No, what Joker truly has his heart set on is a simple title: Batman's arch enemy. Even when he's defeated, Joker still takes solace in the fact that he is Batman's greatest foe. Only Batman doesn't feel the same way about him.
Batman and Joker are not a thing. I don't need you.
And thus, Joker finally has a steadfast goal: to win the acknowledgement of Batman through any means necessary. From a writing standpoint, this sets Joker up for a psychological win condition rather than a physical one. He doesn't need to defeat or destroy Batman, he simply needs him to admit that he matters to him. Because the Joker's intentions have now pivoted to the psychological, it makes it far easier to have the villain win without completely undoing the hero. It allows for the film to build towards a climax that doesn't boil down to who beats who, but rather what the two characters mean to one another. And finally, with Gotham on the brink of destruction and the realization that Joker is the only one that can help stop it, Batman finally concedes to admitting Joker is his archenemy.
So if you help me save Gotham, you'll help me save us.
And just like that, Joker gets his win and agrees to help Batman defeat the interdimensional enemies. But this isn't simply just a funny outcome that reshapes their legendary rivalry as more of a relationship. It also allows Batman to grow as a person. Throughout the entire film, Batman is stricken by a self-imposed isolation, believing he can't be openly emotional with anyone due to the possibility of one day losing them like his parents. It becomes the whole reason why he couldn't beat the Joker initially, driving his allies away as he continues to believe he must tackle every challenge alone. His refusal to acknowledge others, even his enemies, becomes a trait that ultimately hurts others rather than protecting them like he intended. So Joker's win allows Batman to work his way through his own character flaws, which is ideally what you want when writing a villain who wins. Their victory advances the hero's arc by forcing them to come to terms with the lies they've been living. This win for the Joker not only validates his own feelings, but Batman's as well, although Batman's were far more suppressed and needed a bit of coaxing out. By designing the villain's goals around this validation rather than a traditional victory, it allows for a writer to get far more introspective when fleshing out the relationship between their hero and villain. Joker doesn't defeat Batman, but he does complete him. And at the end of the day, that's all the villain really needed to hear. But sometimes it isn't just the hero who becomes ultimately changed by the villain's win. It's the entire belief system of the movie. This is the third type of villain victory, the victory of perspective. This essentially uses a villain's victory to not only change the hero, but to alter the philosophical rules of the film's universe. A great example of this archetype can be found in Gabby Gabby from Toy Story 4. The discarded doll fills in as the film's main antagonist when she learns that Woody possesses a function voice box, something Gabby does not. Seeing this as an attempt to win the attention of the granddaughter of the owner of the antique store she resides in, Gabby holds the newly created toy Forky hostage until Woody agrees to surrender his voice box to her.
When my voice box is fixed, I'll finally get my chance.
Unlike other Toy Story antagonists who usually crave some sort of power or control over their small world, Gabby Gabby's motivation is rooted in something far more personal, a sense of worthlessness. She believes that without an owner, a toy is worth nothing, which is actually a bit of an unspoken underlying theme that persists through most of the franchise. Each film in the Toy Story franchise more or less revolves around ideas of purpose, which usually boils down to being owned and played with by a child. But even if Gabby remains one of the more sympathetic villains in the series, the film still doesn't pull any punches on letting her be a villain. She manipulates the heroes, imprisons them, and attempts to achieve love by force and a very narrow worldview. Yet, interestingly enough, the film decides not to punish her for these terrible deeds despite the franchise's long-running history of doing so. No, the film actually rewards her with what she wants, but this isn't actually what her win is. She receives Woody's voice box and yet is still rejected by the little girl Gabby had been pining after the entire film.
You can take it home if you want.
Typically, this would be the point in the story where the villain goes through a whole redemption arc, atoning for their past sins in order to achieve true happiness. Well, that's only really half true here. Gabby does attempt to return Woody's voice box, but there's really no absolving of her transgressions or even much of a redemption, and in the end, Gabby still manages to find what she was looking for, a little girl to call her owner. What makes this interesting is that the film doesn't reward Gabby with this win because of growth or repentance. She makes no sacrifices or meaningful changes to her worldview, and yet she still gets what she wanted. The aftermath of Gabby's victory is what solidifies that her win is not only a win for herself, but a philosophical win for the film's hero. Her success directly leads to Woody's most consequential decision in the entire franchise, choosing to leave Bonnie. And after film of Woody chasing the desire to be wanted, whether it be by Andy or Bonnie, Woody finally realizes that he and others are capable of more than one purpose by showing Woody that a toy's purpose can exist outside of ownership. Gabby's win destabilizes the foundational belief that has defined Woody since the first film.
I don't know if I can do this.
Gabby, it's just like you said. This is the most noble thing a toy can do.
In this way, Gabby does not just achieve her goal, she alters the fundamental rules that have defined the Toy Story franchise for so long. For writers, the lesson is clear. A villain can win by exposing an emotional truth the story has been avoiding. Gabby succeeds not because of some dominant worldview or quest for power. It's simply that the narrative ultimately agrees with her desire. Her outcome proves that being loved doesn't have to come from fundamentally changing yourself, but finding those who love you for you. It's one of those rare cases where a villain's win is just as rewarding for the hero as it is the villain. So we've seen villains achieve victories of material needs, personal validation, and complete worldview changes, but now we need a villain whose win actually changes them. This is the victory of change, where their win actually manages to change something about them on a fundamental level. There aren't too many examples of this in animated movies, as the villain's win is usually in service to the hero in some way. But what if the villain was the hero? It might be one of the only ways to fully make this archetype work, and there's no animated films out there that does it better than Megamind. From a writing perspective, Megamind's lifelong goal appears straightforward: destroy Metro Man and rule Metro City. This objective is not rooted in personal malice, but in somewhat of a cosmic necessity. Megamind has been cast as the villain since childhood, repeatedly told by both society and his supposed nemesis that this is who he is meant to be. His rivalry with Metro Man is not just external conflict, it is the foundation of his entire identity.
If I was the bad boy, then I was going to be the baddest boy of them all.
When Megamind finally succeeds by killing Metro Man and taking over the city, the film makes a bold structural choice. It allows that victory to stand. There is no immediate reversal, no hidden survival reveal, and no triumphant moral correction. Megamind wins exactly the way he was always supposed to.
You did it, sir.
I did it!
He did it!
I did it! Atrocity is back!
And yet there's still like over an hour of the movie left. That's because Megamind's lifelong goal isn't actually his win. What makes his victory powerful is that the film refuses to frame it as an endpoint. Instead, it treats the win as a destabilizing event. Megamind achieves his life's purpose and discovers that it means nothing without an opposing force. By removing Metro Man from the equation, Megamind loses the very thing that defined the essence of his entire being. From a writing standpoint, this is quite the subversion. Most villain victories are treated as climaxes. Megamind's is treated as an inciting incident for self-examination. Sure, he has his fun reveling in his villainy, but it becomes painfully clear that his ultimate goal does not fulfill him as he hoped. He becomes bored, lonely, and adrift. The story uses his victory to expose the lie at the center of his character, that being a villain was his destiny rather than a societally motivated choice.
Always thirsty, never satisfied. I understand you, little well-dressed bird.
The brilliance of this approach is that Megamind's eventual transformation into a hero does not negate his initial win, it completes it. By allowing Megamind to live in a world where he has won, the writers create space for him to redefine himself without the pressure of opposition. His creation of Titan is not a relapse into villainy, but a desperate attempt to restore the familiar narrative structure of hero versus villain. This is crucial for writers to know. Megamind does not become a hero because he suddenly wants to be good. He becomes a hero because he realizes that identity built solely in opposition is hollow. His victory over Metro Man gives him the freedom and the burden of choice for the first time. Megamind's success is internal before it's external. He wins when he stops performing villainy and starts acting with intention. By the time he publicly embraces heroism, the real victory has already occurred. He has rejected the story that told him who he was allowed to be. This is a masterclass in letting a villain win without undermining the moral trajectory of the story. Megamind is not punished for his ambition, nor is made to be a threat once again. Instead, the story affirms that his traits were never the problem. His lack of self-definition was.
You need to be that guy right now. The city needs you.
So what's the biggest takeaway from writing a villain like this? Letting a villain win can be the most honest way to interrogate their motivation. By granting Megamind his goal early and refusing to undo it, the story forces him to confront the emptiness of a life defined by opposition. This approach requires confidence and patience, but it pays off by producing character growth that feels earned rather than a hollow narrative requirement. Megamind does not become a hero because the plot demands redemption. He becomes a hero because victory gives him the clarity to realize he now and always had a choice. In that sense, Megamind's greatest win is not defeating Metro Man or saving the city, it's claiming authorship over his own identity. And for writers, that is the ultimate reminder. A villain who wins can become the strongest foundation for a hero, if the story is brave enough to give the villain exactly what he wants. The biggest takeaway from this video should be this: if you let a villain win, you have to make it mean something. The victory has to cost something, and that cost must matter more than comfort. When handled with intention, a winning villain does not weaken a narrative. They clarify it. They expose the hero's flaws, test the story's beliefs, and leave the audience with something far more lasting than reassurance. Sometimes the most powerful way to prove what a story is about is to let the villain be right, just once.